Sing, y'all. Good. Good morning. Is Pastor Chris ready back there? Can you hear me? Yeah? Good morning. How is everyone? That sounded convincing. Okay, well, good morning. Welcome to Youth Sunday. We got a couple of treats for you today. I'm not one of them. But, hey, if y'all will join us in this chorus just to open up. This is a older chorus. You should know it, and you need to sing really loud to drown out my piano playing because I'm just learning. So I don't know if you are familiar with the chorus. I love you, Lord, and we exalt thee, but that's what we're going to try today, okay? We're going to get in the mood to worship, and we are going to do such. Sound good to y'all? All right, let's go then. Words are on the screen if you need them. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you, oh my soul, rejoice, take joy, my King, in what you hear. May it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. Sounds great. Do it again. I love you, Lord. Sing out. And I lift my voice to worship you, oh my soul, rejoice, take joy, my King, in what you hear. May it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. Oh Lord, we exalt thee. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. Oh Lord. May it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. Beautiful. Thank you for joining that worship chorus with us. And we're going to have Miss Joan up here to play us one as well. Yeah, I'll take one. All right. There's some green and red books out there. This song is in both. So if you grab a green book, it'll be number 305. This is one that the youth picked out to do. Green book, number 305, or red book, number 430. Green 305, red 430. It's a what? Is it the other way around? Well, find 305 or 430, whichever one you're in. And we will be singing the Old Rugged Cross. Is that right, Ashley? Is that what you picked? Yes? Somewhere over there? Let's see if I did it wrong. Yeah, I did that wrong. 305 in the red book and 430 in the green book. Everybody clear as mud now? That will probably not be the last mess up I have today. All right, the old rugged cross. We'll do the first, second, and last. Some announcements if we can get Evan. He loves doing the announcements just because he likes to brag about how much he loves Pastor Chris. I heard that this morning already, so thank you for that. It really helps build me up, when I'm about to speak. Thanks. You got this? Oh, he's got it. This is always dangerous.
Good morning. Glad all of you could be here. And if any of you are feeling down today, just remember your Georgia Bulldogs are national champions. We've got, what is this? Sorry, I can't read Damon's Chicken Scratch. The Fifth Sunday Sing tonight at Cool Springs Baptist at 6 p.m. Something about the four-way. The four-way?
In Tate at the four-way stop.
Okay.
I don't know their address. They're at the four-way stop in Tate.
Okay,
6
and then next Saturday at 5 p.m. we have the Hearts for Easter and Night with the King. You got anything to say on that?
No. No, I'm good.
Okay, well, that's all for this morning.
All right.
What's next?
I think that's good. We're going to do one more special here.
Oh, we got one more special, baby.
It's the incitement enthusiasm that I really like. Really brings it all together. But so the Hearts for Easter banquet is next Saturday at 5. If you haven't gotten pictures to me yet, get those to me or send them digitally or whatever. I'm putting together a little presentation. It's not too late to sign up. I think the sign-up sheet is back out there in the hallway. I think we've got about 23 or 24 couples. I'm just going to warn you one more time. You don't want to miss this entertainment. It will be a once-in-a-lifetime thing to see because it's probably never going to happen again. But we are going to sing a song. You can go to the next slide there, my friend, Mr. Braden. We're going to sing a song that's a new one now. And I love the fact that the youth get up here and they want to help lead worship, and they are okay with picking old hymns, Old Rugged Cross, and they also sing along with the new stuff. That's great. So this one is by Zach Williams. It is called Face to Face. So read along with us, or you can sing along with us if you know it, and we're going to get through this together and just kind of concentrate on the words. This kind of goes along with the sermon today. So here we go. Oh, I'm a traveler, far from home. I get lost, but I press on, 'cause there's a mansion on streets of gold where I belong. Yes, there's a day coming soon where the old will be made new, and heaven's glory shines like the morning before our eyes. When we all see Jesus, when we all see Jesus, and no more sickness, and no more madness, and no more pain. When we all see Jesus face to face, then we will sing with angel voices. There will be great rejoicing. Holy, holy, worthy, worthy is the Lamb. When we all see Jesus, when we all see Jesus, and no more sickness, and no more madness, and no more pain. When we all see Jesus face to face. Notice we had a youth member playing that one on the piano, so thank you so much. I didn't want to say anything first and scare her off or make her nervous, so she did wonderful. Greatly appreciate that. Excellent. If y'all are okay, I'm going to roll my sleeves up. It's really hot up here. I don't know about out there. Is it warm? I got one over there nodding. It's warm. But anyway, so the title of the sermon today, it was on the first slide up there. Lessons from the Limb. That's what we're going to talk about today. I hope I won't keep you too long, but you'll be here until I'm done unless you leave early. So I can't promise anything. Okay. If you could go back to and pick any 2 days, any two stories that you wanted, if you could witness those firsthand, what would those 2 days or two stories be? What would you choose to go back and be a part of firsthand where you could see it? And I don't have an answer for that. I've got a million of these stories I would love to go back and be a part of and to see and to experience. And I'm not sure which ones I would choose. And to be honest, I don't even know if it would change anything about me now, seeing these or witnessing these firsthand. But it may be chapter 5 in Luke, the paralytic. Maybe I want to hang out with the four guys that carry him to the house. Maybe I want to see what their thought process is. Maybe I want to see how did they come up with the idea of going through the roof. Maybe I want to be in the house. Maybe I want to see the religious leaders and see firsthand their reaction. Maybe that's one of the stories that I would choose. Maybe it's in chapter 6 of Luke, the Sermon on the Mount. Probably Chris and Ruben could appreciate this. What keeps men and women and children and families hung on every word for hours? That they don't care how long he's been up on stage. They don't care how long he's been behind the pulpit. What are those words that keep people sitting there wanting to hear more? Skipping breakfast and lunch and dinner. Maybe that would be something to see firsthand. Or it could be chapter 8. Maybe I would put myself in the boat on the lake and hear those words firsthand. Where's your faith? That one might be a little hard to be in. Where's your faith? But maybe that's it. Or maybe it's on the beach when they hit the other side of the lake and that demoniac comes screaming down the beach, yelling, and Jesus stands there unflinching and just says, "What's your name?" While the other guys are piled back in the boat, scared to death. Or maybe I stay on the opposite side and I hang out with Jairus, that has the 12-year-old daughter that's dying at home. Maybe I hang out with him. And maybe I go into that story. There's so many that I would have loved to have been a part of and to have seen and to heard and witnessed. And I don't think I could pick just two. So today, I want to go into a story. I want to go into a time that maybe we can witness this a little bit firsthand. One of those days, one of those stories within that 3 to 3.5 year span of Jesus' ministry. And I want us to truly go there. I want us to experience. I want us to think about things. I want us to understand other things happened that aren't documented. And allow ourselves to kind of question some stuff or imagine maybe what was going on. So as best as we can, I want to go there and stand on the cobblestone, and I want to get a glimpse of who this guy was, Jesus. Who was this man that we're following? What did he do? And how did those folks react once they encountered him? And so let's go there. You turn to chapter 19 in Luke. Luke chapter 19. And while you're turning there, I'm going to kind of bring us up to speed. Before we get to the main part here, I'm going to back up just a little bit. You turn to 19 and be prepared to be at verse 1 with me here shortly. But I think this will really help us understand what's going on in this day, in this story, and I think we might be able to appreciate it just a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of go through from Luke 18, around verse 31, 34, in that frame. You just hold out in chapter 19, verse 1. In chapter 17 and 18, he has explained that the kingdom of God is not what you think it's going to be. It's probably not going to pay off the way you want it to pay off. That's what he's explained in these previous two chapters. But it's so much greater than what our little created mind can ever imagine. It's, I think Ruben brought it up a couple of weeks, the upside down kingdom, or Chris brought it up, or one of these two wonderful preachers that I am not in the same circle of has brought it up, the upside down kingdom. He has flipped this kingdom upside down. He has turned it's backwards to those that are there. So in chapter 18 and 31, 34, in the end of that chapter, they are 10 miles away from Jerusalem. If you look on a map, the last dot before Jerusalem is Jericho. And Jesus calls the 12 together and he says, look, we're 10 miles away and I want you to know this. And this is what he's telling you. You may notice some subtle differences in me the next few days. You may see that I'm kind of lost in my thought. I may be a little bit more distant from you than normal. But you've been with me for 3 years, and I have to tell the 12 of you that I've mentioned it before, but we're 10 miles away. And when we walk into Jerusalem, it will be the last time that we walk into a town together. I'll spend a week there. I'll be turned over to the Gentiles. I'll be insulted, spit upon. I'll be beaten. I will carry the cross out of that city, and I will die. And it will be torture. 10 miles away from the most horrific death in history. He says, I want you to know it. And they still don't get it. They're still clueless to what he's talking about. And then in 1835 through 43, they walk into Jericho, and technically they were in between ancient Jericho and the new Roman Jericho. They're in between these little cities of Jericho. And there's a blind man named Bartimaeus, and he's screaming out, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And the crowd, I'm just going to put it bluntly, they basically tell him to shut up. We don't need you being an attraction to the trash in our town. You don't need to call out for him. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't humiliate yourself. Just be quiet. And he screams out the more, it says in the Bible, louder. Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus says, hey, bring him to me. And now, face to face, as we sang a song this morning, face to face, Jesus simply says, what do you want me to do for you? And the blind guy, he's probably like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know Jesus was blind too. You know, I'm blind. What? Why does he not know? And he simply says, Lord, that's important, I want to see. And look, Jesus knows our desires. He knows our needs. He knows our wants. But more than anything, in this one little glimpse, Jesus wants a relationship. He wants us to come with these burdens and say, and express our faith. This is what I need. This is what I need. This is what I need. It's obedience. It's faith. This is it. And there's submission here with this blind guy. The man calls him Lord. That's lordship. It's obedience, and that's faith. The man's eyes are opened, and he can see, and he begins to follow Jesus. It says in the text, and they walk into Jericho, again, 10 miles away from the cross. There's our setting. Chapter 19, verse 1. Chapter 19, 1 through 4. Then Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. Now behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich, understatement. And he sought to see who Jesus was, but could not because of the crowd, for he was short of stature. So he ran ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was going to pass that way. Stop for now. Everything that we need to know is right here in the first 4 verses. We're going to read more, but the first 4 verses is everything we need to know. Not just an introduction to what's about to happen, but everything we need to know to step into this story and be there. And the Bible is begging us, put yourself in here. Put yourself in the stories. I have some social media things that I follow, and this one keeps popping up on one of them. It's just a guy, and he says, you better believe in Bible stories because you're in one. And I love that. It's like, just in the last few weeks, it started popping up. You better believe in Bible stories because you're in one. I'll let y'all ponder on that for the rest of the day. So we're going to go into this one. First of all, we're in a city called Jericho. It is 10 miles northeast of the capital, Jerusalem. It is the gateway to the capital, but is also the gateway to the lands east of the Jordan River. Jericho is where everyone crosses the river. It's almost like a port city, even though it's on a river. It's a port city. There's more traffic and commerce through this area than any other city right in this area. And with that, it is one of the most heavily taxed cities in the region. Zacchaeus was not just a tax collector in that city, he was the chief tax collector. And we've talked about tax collectors before, but I'm going to remind you just while I have you for a moment, these guys were operating legally under Roman law, under the Roman government. But what they were doing is, honestly, it was sinful, what they were doing. And they're ripping off their people, and the people know it. He's the chief tax collector. He is over all the other tax collectors, and he is in charge of the Ponzi scheme of the day. He is the Bernie Madoff of the day, if you will. And taxes were pretty simple. Anything that you grew, 10% of that went straight to the Roman government. Wine or oil, 1/5 went straight to the Roman government. An annual income tax of 1%, I could vote for that. But we can't forget there was a person tax on every male in a household by the Roman government. Those were all pretty fixed. Those were all pretty straightforward. This is the way it is. This is what you're going to pay. This is it. But what you taxed for traffic and commerce, that was up for debate. And that's where the tax collectors had their way with you and your money. And whatever they wanted to take off your wagon or off your person, that's what they took. However much they wanted to tax you per wheel or per hoof, they were allowed to charge. So when you have a city that's so heavy in commerce and people, it is safe to say that Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector, is a very, very rich man. Understatement in the verse. He was a rich guy. He was very rich, extremely. And everyone knows how he got rich. He's working for the enemy. That's what he's doing. He has full power and authority of the Roman government behind him. But we also know this about tax collectors of that day. He would have lost his family. They would have disowned him. The moment he signed that tax collector contract, he would have lost family and friend. He lost his religion. He's not allowed in the synagogue. He's not allowed to worship with the rest of Israel. We know he's wealthy, and we know he's broken. We see it in the story. He's broken. He's looking and seeking for Jesus for some reason. He's given up family and friends and relationship for wealth. And now that he has all the wealth he ever dreamed of, he realizes he has nothing. In the first 4 verses, we find this man running down Main Street. And this song kept popping into my head the last couple of weeks as I was getting prepared, right? Zacchaeus was a wee little man, I almost wanted to do that one today, but I didn't know if anybody would know that one. That's all we're going to sing on that. So let's put ourselves on Main Street. Let's put ourselves in the crowd somewhere and realize that Zacchaeus is hated. He is absolutely despised by everyone there that day. He's in his business attire, running down Main Street, and businessmen don't run. It's laughable. Thank you. You went ahead of my cue there. It's laughable for a businessman to be running down Main Street. And he's trying to get out ahead of the crowd. He's trying to get in front of them. Maybe he's trying to get up on a curb so he can see. And look, you can do nothing about what Zacchaeus does with your taxes. But what you can do is kind of stand close to your buddy, and you can kind of block Zacchaeus from seeing anything. Like me and Chris would be a great wall. Me and Chris and Brad, we'd just be like, Zacchaeus wouldn't see anything, right? We can't do anything about taxes, but we can prevent him from seeing Jesus. We sure can. We can just block his way. So he decides he's going to get higher than the curb, so he climbs a tree. And I'm going to keep this part short because it is Youth Sunday and everybody's in here. But think about this for just a moment. He is in business attire, climbing a tree. His business attire was not a 3-piece suit. His business attire would have been a toga. Can you imagine the humiliation? Climbing a tree and a toga. Just going to leave it at that. You can explain it later to your youngins. Okay? If this was one of the days that I had picked to be a part of, I would have asked Zacchaeus, why do you want to see this guy so bad? You're the wealthiest man in the region, and you will go to this type of humiliation to see this guy? Why? Why? That would be a great question for Zacchaeus to answer. What are you looking for? What stories have you heard, Zach? Did you hear about the 12-year-old girl that was dying? Did you hear about the blind guy that was just healed? What have you heard? And how did you hear it? Did you pay for every piece of parchment that was coming into Jericho that had some reference to Jesus on it? Did you pay to get the news? That would have been my question to him, first of all. Why are you so interested in seeing this guy? And what did you hear about him that made you decide to run down Main Street in your business attire? And the story picks up in the tree. Verse 5. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said to him, Zacchaeus, stop right there. I promise I'll have you out of here before 1 o'clock, but we're going to stop right there for just a moment. Now that we have set the scene, we have set the environment, we are there, we're standing near the tree, and we know what's going on. Zacchaeus is how he greets him. Maybe I would have asked Zacchaeus, hey, if you get a chance to see Jesus today, if you get a chance to talk to him, what do you think he's going to say to you? If Jesus were to call you a name in front of the crowd, what name do you think he would call you? And I'm sure Zacchaeus has heard most of the names he's been referred to by the crowds. He's hated by these people for betraying them and getting rich off of it. I bet he would never imagine that Jesus would call him by his name that day. But in the midst of the crowd and everything going on, Jesus looks up and says, Zacchaeus. And Jesus understands the importance of a name. I know your name. I know you. You have value. That's what Jesus just told him by saying Zacchaeus. I know your name. I know you. And you have value. I think there are two reasons why Jesus went through Jericho on this day. One was the blind man at the gate that wanted to see. And the other is the man in the tree that so desperately wanted to see Jesus. Those are the two reasons he went through Jericho, I think. I'm not trying to add anything to it. 10 miles from the cross, 10 miles from his death, when he could have simply said, guys, I need a break. We're going to skip this city. I have too much on my mind right now. There's too much on my plate, too much going on to think about others right now. But instead he says, we're going through Jericho. And we're going there. And they go. So let me finish verse 5 and go into 6. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must stay at your house. So he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. The urgency in both of those statements. Come down immediately, and he came down immediately. It was a very urgent request and command. He says, this is why I came. Right now, come down. I have to stay with you. Time is short. It's 10 miles short. That's how short the time was. That's the urgency in these statements. Verse 7 through 8. But when they saw it, speaking of the crowd, they all complained, saying, he has gone to be a guest with a man who is a sinner. Then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, look, Lord, I give half of my goods to the poor, and if I have taken anything from anyone by false accusations, I restore fourfold. The crowd complains that Jesus is going to be a guest with a sinner. Wow. I wonder if the church today would complain about who Jesus hangs out with. Do we? I don't know. That's something that you can only answer. Do we complain about who Jesus wants to hang out with? They did. I just thought it was an interesting statement. And it kind of moves somewhere between 7 and 8. There's a dinner that happens. There's some kind of fellowship that takes place between verse 7 and verse 8. And there's a response in verse 8. Wouldn't you have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that home? How long was the conversation? How long did it last? What was for dinner? That would have been my first thing. What are we eating? But that's because I like to eat. How long did it last? How was it a 30-minute dinner? And then, coffee after? Was it an hour and a half conversation? What took place in that moment between verse 7 and verse 8? That the response is, I'm done. I'm all in. So first he goes up in a tree. The chief tax collector simply wants to see this Jesus. And then at some point after dinner, he has a Lord. He calls him Lord in verse 8. He starts off, Lord. First, I just want to see you, but now I have a Lord. That's an interesting dinner. That's interesting, cake and coffee time to me. Verse 9 through 10. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because he also is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Whatever happened during that dinner, Zacchaeus stands up and he says, Lord, I've heard enough. I'm all in. I no longer work for Caesar. It's you I work for. That's what happened at the dinner. I'm taking half of everything I have and I'm giving it to the poor. And then I'm going through all my business records and my client list. And for anyone I've ever cheated, I'm paying them back 4 times the amount. Side note, according to Jewish law, as referenced in Exodus 22, 1 through 4, and Leviticus 6, 5, if you're into Jewish law and all this other stuff, if you want to go research those, Zacchaeus only had to pay back what he stole and 20%. 4 times is astronomical. It's astronomical. So I wonder if he started that night. I wonder if he got done with the dinner. He said, Lord, I'm through. I'm all in. I'm with you. I'm taking all of this money. I'm scraping half of it off of my counting table, and I'm going to start stuffing envelopes. And I wonder if he left his house that night and started knocking on doors. I owe you this. Have a good night. I just had dinner with Jesus. I don't know when it started. That would have been something interesting to see. I would have liked to have gone to a few of those doors. The people that hated him, that were ripped off by him, all of a sudden they're getting 4 times back. I had dinner with Jesus. Have a good night. I got to go to the next house. It's an interesting question. So let's put ourselves back in the story and see how, well, let me ask you this question first. This is a quiz, pop quiz. I've said this before. I'm going to see if y'all can follow along with me. You ready? The way Jesus dealt with people, it's been a while. It's been a while. We got faces going, oh gosh, what did he say? The way Jesus dealt with people then is the way Jesus deals with people now. We can practice for the next pop quiz. The way Jesus dealt with people is the way Jesus deals with people. Thank you. It might pop up again. So let's put ourselves back in the story and let's see how Jesus dealt with people then and how he deals with us now. It's Lessons from the Limb. That's the title. This is the fill in the blank part. If I had enough time to fill in the blank, give you sheets, but I didn't, so just pay attention. Number 1, following Jesus starts with seeing Jesus. It's pretty simple. Following Jesus starts with seeing Jesus. And so oftentimes I feel like we come and we want Jesus to do something in our lives before we have any clue who he is. And that's what a lot of people are looking for from Jesus. Do something in my life and then, then maybe I'll start following you. And sometimes we expect people to come to church and start following Jesus before seeing Jesus. And before anyone can know what Jesus can do in their lives, they have to see who Jesus is. The blind beggar at the gate in chapter 18 received his sight. He saw Jesus and began following him. Zacchaeus put himself out on a limb in a tree. He risked everything, vulnerability, humiliation, simply saying, I've got to see who this guy is. Before we know how God wants to work in our lives from the inside out, we've got to see who he is. And we have to know who he is. This is very basic. This is very simple. My next statement is so simple. We have to understand this is not a God that is somewhere out in the cosmos that is waiting to strike us down at any moment. He's not a God that's always disappointed in us. I've had so many conversations with my mom. That's how she grew up in church. God's just ready to strike you down. God's just always disappointed you. And it bothers, she's 81 years old, and it bothers her to this day, that type of preaching. That is not who God is. That is not who Jesus is. He wants relationship. That's it. And we got to see him for who he is. See him for his forgiveness and his mercy and his grace and for what he did on the cross, even for an idiot like me. We have to see it, and we have to see him for who he truly is. Number two, real salvation means real changes. Real salvation means real changes. To have a real encounter with Christ, to make him Lord of your life, is not just a title. It means real changes. Here's my struggle. Real changes. Constant struggle, constant battle. Thank goodness I'm in the company of Paul. I do what I'm not supposed to do. I don't do what I am supposed to do. It's a battle. If a business changes owners, some of y'all may have been through this. Are there not changes in the company sometimes? Right? Has anybody been through like a business change, an ownership change, anything like that? I've moved around a lot in my life. That's not a bad thing. It's kind of made me who I am. But have you ever gone back to a home that you used to live in? You ever just drive by, do a quick drive-by and see what's going on in an old house maybe that you lived in? Did you ever get mad because they painted a different color? They chopped down your favorite tree, or they put some shutters on the house that wasn't your style? It's their house. It's not yours. You don't live there anymore. It's a new ownership. It's real changes, right? And it's the same here with this story of Zacchaeus. He gives his life over to the Lord, and he says, here it is. It's yours. I'm done. And there's changes. We see it in the story. We can almost feel it in the story. So kind of look at it like this. Here's just a quick breakdown I found in this study. We do what we want. We encounter Christ. We do what he wants. That's Christianity. That's Christianity. That's lordship. That's following. Or we do what we want. We encounter Christ, and we still do what we want. That's religion. It's rabbit foot religion. That's not lordship. That's a title. Oh yeah, I used to do this, but I met Jesus and I still do this. That's just simple religion. That has nothing to do with lordship. Nothing to do with it. Jesus saves us to change us, not to bless us. And I'm all for a God that wants to bless me. Don't get me wrong. But a God that wants to change me, hey, hang on a second. And he'll give you that. He'll give you that option. Just keep being tax collector, buddy. Just keep doing it. That's your free will. Zacchaeus comes and says, I'm done with me. I've heard about you. And once he spent enough time seeing who Jesus was, he stood up and he says, I'm all in. I'm giving half away and I'm paying back. And I'm not focusing on the money here. I'm talking about time and energy and your obedience. I'm talking lordship, you know. I'm not worried about the money. 2 stories ago in Luke, a rich young ruler comes and Jesus says, I want all your money, give it all away. And what happened to him? That was a pop quiz. It should have been an easy one. he walked away sad. He walked away sad. So why is 50% good enough for Zacchaeus? You ever kind of ask yourself these questions? Because Jesus doesn't care about what you have. He cares about what has you. He wants your heart. And when Zacchaeus says, here's what I'm going to do with it, Jesus says, I know I have your heart. He's always after the idols of our heart. And real salvation means real changes. And sometimes we get a little confusing in church and salvation and all this other stuff. So, we kind of hear these things about working out your salvation, and then we have all these little confusing things. Well, it's not works. It's, all these statements that kind of confuse us. And the youth group, we just started going through James. And James is all about like faith and works and things of that nature. I'm so excited to be in this book with them because it's just the basics. It's just like boot camp. It's like, 101, right? And that's where I live. I'm in the 101 Basic Club, And so I'm excited to go through them with it. So let me do a little bit of a jump here. Let me do this. Let me see if this makes sense. May 7th, 1994. I said I do. And by some miracle, she said she did too. It's one of the easiest things you can ever do. You need two people that say I do. You need one witness that's 18 years of age or older. And you need a good preacher or justice of the peace. Maybe a good preacher, maybe not. It's the easiest thing you can ever do. So, are you married? Oh, yeah, sure am. May 7th, 1994. Oh, what's her name? Well, I don't really remember. We're not really that close. I haven't seen her in about 20 years. I thought you said you were married. I am. May 7th, 1994. I said I do. She said I do. Okay, but nothing's changed, right? You're married, but you don't have a marriage. No one ever told me, right, May 8th and May 9th and May 10th, 1994, how much work this thing was going to be, especially for her. Nobody told me that the work that goes into this thing. I almost feel like I got cheated. Like you should have told me about all this work that goes into this thing. And we're not trying to stay married, right? We're trying to have a good marriage. Yes? Okay. You can be married and have no health in the marriage. You can be married and have no benefits of a great marriage. You can be married and have no fulfillment in the marriage. See, God's salvation is a Christ that looks at you in spite of who you are and what you've done, and he says, I do. Now you just have to commit. You have to commit, right? He says, I do, way a long time ago. You just got to say, I do, and then commit. It's that simple. And we don't work for the salvation. I don't get to a place where I earn it. I've already made the commitment, right? So what I do on a daily basis is try to get rid of the sin in my life, try to get rid of the temptation, try to get rid of that sense of self so that I can have the healthiest relationship that I can have. God's gift is his son. His death on the cross, it's free. It's grace. You simply accept it. You're a child of God. Now, if you want a relationship that's healthy, you want God living in you and through you, you want a life that's impactful, a life that's contented, a life that's full, you say, okay, here's some stuff I got to work out. Here's some stuff I got to get rid of. But again, I'm not trying to stay married. I'm just trying to have a good marriage. I'm not working for my salvation. I'm trying to have a good relationship with God. Does that make sense? Was that way too off? Or you see what I'm saying? We have to come to the point that salvation means real changes. So, what changes do we see in this story? Number one, righting past wrongs. Zacchaeus rights a lot of past wrongs. And it goes back to Matthew 5, 23 through 24. And Paul brings it up in Romans 12, 18 through 20. And these are the tough things. These are the things that, we don't really like to tackle in our Christian lives. You know, Matthew says, you know, go out, and if you have something that, you know, somebody you've done wrong or whatever, don't come to church until you make that right. You have to go out and right some past wrongs, right? It'd be like you have kids, right? And they're beating each other up in the playroom, and, you know, there's blood splatter all over the wall. And then you bring them down for supper, and you say, all right, we're going to bless the food. And they say their little prayer, oh, thank you, God, for this food and our families. And they were just at each other's throats. And then they're going to sit down and give us this, oh, thank you, God, for our families and our brothers and sisters. And it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, that's kind of a stretch, but that's what it's saying in Matthew. If you got something wrong with somebody or something has something wrong, go make it right. And then come and enjoy that relationship and enjoy that privilege, right, in church. That's what he's saying. Number 2, new goals and values. New goals and values. One of the lessons learned. We've already talked about this with Jesus not saving us to bless us, but to change our lives. And Zacchaeus versus the rich young ruler, Zacchaeus encounters Jesus and takes on a new Lord in his life and looks at all of his money stacked up on the table where he counts it, and he says, that's it. No more. I'm done. Half of it's gone. I'm going to go tell people about my dinner with Jesus. And when we encounter true salvation, it should change our goals and values. This life should no longer have its hooks in you. This life no longer should tell me, man, it's about how much you make. It's about the car you drive. It's about the house you live in. It's about the title you have. Or that should have nothing to do with my account in heaven. This is play money here. And I know we struggle, you know, with financials and things of that nature. I understand that. But this is all play money. You're just here to manage it, right? It's not yours anyway. New goals and values. And number 3, when it comes to real changes, it starts at home. We saw this in the story. Zacchaeus gets up and he says, Lord, I'm all in. And Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house. And this is the toe smasher for me. This one's hard. Men, you want a great measurement of your Christianity? Ask your wife how you're doing with it. They'll tell you. They'll be honest with you. It'll tell you how you're doing with your walk. Are you teaching your sons how to be real men of character, real men of God in this world? Are your daughters loved and cherished? Do they understand that because you've poured that out onto them? Are your homes strong and safe and content because you're there? Ladies, you want to know how you're doing at loving Jesus? Ask your husband, how am I doing at loving you? For some of you, that's a really great ministry. Toughest part of obedience, loving that guy. I'm looking at you, Kenneth. I didn't want to look at my wife because I know she's like staring back at me. Sometimes, most of the time, I give no reason for my wife to love and respect me. But Ephesians 5 says you want to be a Christian, you want to show the world you have a God, you have leadership in your life. Men, you pursue and love that woman to the point of death. And women, your chance to show if you love Jesus is how you love your husband, and it starts at home. And the hardest place to be a Christian is at home. That's crazy. Amongst those that know us best. I can get out in the world and I can fake it until I make it. I can come to church and I can put this great act on. But when I walk through those doors at home and I'm face to face with how am I really being obedient? How is my lordship? There's 1,000 excuses. Well, she does this and he won't do that. Ephesians 5 says, men, you love your wife how Christ loved the church. And let me remind you, it was the church that voted for Barabbas. It was the church that crucified him. And he said, I'll die for them too. Young people, since my youth are here, hopefully they haven't abandoned me. How are you treating your parents? Are you respectful? Are you honoring your mother and father? Are you obedient? So you've got some homework too this week. Ephesians 6, 1 through 3. for the youth. Ephesians 6, 1 through 3. It starts at home. Mark 5 is that demoniac. He tries to climb in the boat with Jesus after he gets the demons out. And where did Jesus tell him to go? I love pop quizzes today. The demoniac. Demons flee into the swine. He's climbing in the boat with Jesus. I'm going with y'all. And Jesus says, what? Go home. Go home. That's where you'll have the biggest impact. The woman at the well in John 4, she went back home. She went back into town. She started telling everybody about the conversation with Jesus and brought half the town back with her to the well. You want to make a difference? You want to show God you're serious about Him being Lord? It starts at home. Zacchaeus, today salvation has come to this house. So those were the lessons from the limb. And I want to look quickly at lessons from Jesus. There are two that I want to leave you with. The way Jesus dealt with people. Y'all, you're killing me. Did I sneak up on you with that one? The way that Jesus dealt with people is the way Jesus expects us to deal with people now. Man, I hate that one. Whew, that's a challenge. Number one, put the needs and interests of others before our own. Philippians 2, 3 through 5. If you call yourself a Christian, then follow what Christ did, and that is our model for life. Put the needs of others above yourself. Number two, seek sinners, don't just put up with them. All the people in the town that day, all the people lining the streets, knew who Zacchaeus was and what his sin was. Only one person talked to him. Jesus. Only person to talk to him. Jesus eats with sinners. He talks to them at wells. I wonder if Zacchaeus went out looking for Jesus because maybe he had heard that one of Jesus' 12 was named Matthew. Maybe he used to work with him because Matthew was a tax collector. I wonder if Zacchaeus used to work with Matthew and he saw the change. I wonder if that's why he was seeking him that day. And Jesus said, I've come to seek and to save that which was lost. That happens outside of these four walls. Jesus' heart was in the streets and towns and homes, not in the four walls of a building. Lessons from the limb, lessons from Jesus. If we call ourselves Christians, this is the Christ we are supposed to follow and emulate. Listen, 10 miles away from the cross, and he had so much on his plate, and he still said, there are two things I have to take care of. One, beggar at the gate is trapped at the bottom of life. The other, a chief tax collector trapped at the top. I don't know what's on your plate. I'm sure it's consuming you right now, but if you could take a breath, take a step back, look around in your life, you could probably find someone that is worse off than you. Maybe part of getting through your stuff is finding someone else that you could love, someone else that needs to see Jesus. It seems to be what Jesus modeled throughout the Bible. And this came from the commentary that I use a lot. Enduring Word, I've said that before. EnduringWord.com, if you want to check out a wonderful commentary. David Guzik is his name. This is what he kind of summarized this whole thing with. Jesus explained why he sought and extended friendship to a notorious sinner like Zacchaeus. In bold, the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Jesus came precisely to save people like Zacchaeus. Even though Zacchaeus sought Jesus, it turns out that he was the one who was lost, and Jesus sought him. Zacchaeus was lost to his parents, lost to his religion, lost to his community, lost to whatever friends he might have had, yet in a sense not lost to God. As the story of his conversion unfolds, his seeking Jesus turned out to be the result of Jesus first seeking him. Interesting. The entire account with Zacchaeus gives us a remarkable who, what, where, when, why, and how of receiving Jesus. Who Jesus wants to receive him, the lost. What Jesus wants with those who receive him, relationship. Where Jesus wants to go, down to them, when Jesus wants to receive him, immediately or quickly. We saw that in the story. Why Jesus wants you to receive him is to be with him, to connect with him in life. And how Jesus wants us to receive him is joyfully. All in the story. All in the story. Ms. Joan, I forgot to tell you about the last song that we were going to do. I don't even know if it's in the book. I'm sure it is. I think we've sung it before. So just keep your seat. You got to play tonight at the sing. I'll try and pick a right key for us. And y'all will all sing along, right? Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Man, y'all, we got a great choir here. I'm going to wrap up with this. As Pastor Chris spoke about last week, who is your one? I don't know if you were here last week or if you remember that. Who's your one that needs to see Jesus? Who's your one that could see Jesus through you? And I'm really excited about this project that he's going to continue to kind of slowly roll out for us. And I've already picked my one. I'm already praying for opportunities with this guy that I work with. And I've already had some opportunities this week, just after 1 week of praying about it. And he and I have talked about some things this week. And maybe you're not comfortable talking to your one about Jesus, but how about praying for them daily, that God would seek them and that you could be a part of that search party? The Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Because, I'm going to warn you this time, this is a pop quiz. The way God dealt with people is the way God deals with people. Perfect. We will close in prayer unless, Pastor Chris, you have anything that you want to say as well? You're good? Okay. Well, why don't we just stand and we can greet each other on the way out, and I'll pray us out for this. Father God, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for the young folks that are so involved in this church and willing to participate and lead in worship, God. And I want you to just be strong in their lives, God. They need it right now. And let us be the adults and the parents and the mentors in their life that can keep them on this journey towards you and towards that wonderful relationship, God. Thank you for this lesson today with Zacchaeus and giving us this information about looking for you and seeking you and making real commitments and change in our lives, God. I needed it. I don't know if anybody else did, but I just want to thank you for providing this for me and pray that it was received with the intention that it was delivered in, God. We just thank you again. We pray that you would keep us safe this week and that we could have a great fellowship time this evening in the fifth Sunday Sing, and where we can just celebrate our love for you and rejoice in you and worship, God. So we ask this all in your Son's precious holy name, Jesus Christ. Amen.